And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It is brought to you by the Fanatics Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. Don't forget, we'll be there on Monday. And, of course, we will be getting you ready for the Eagles and the Packers. It's been an interesting week for the Eagles, even though the bye week is here. They made a trade. They're in trade rumors. And, of course, there's a trade deadline looming still. Andrew DiCecco is in today for today's Football at 4 from the Inside the Birds podcast, InsideTheBirds.com. Let's take a look at his thoughts on this trade, how it will all shake out. Michael Carter is in the nest. We'll talk more about that right now and more with the great Andrew DiCecco from InsideTheBirds.com as he joins us here for a Friday edition of Football at 4. Andrew, what's going on, man?
Hey, Mike. How are you, man? Good to be with you.
As always, good to get you on this happy hour Friday. And, the Eagles have a bye week, but, man, they always seem to make news no matter what. You got the trade deadline on Tuesday, but Howie Roseman active this week. Michael Carter is in here. Give me your read on this Carter move, how he fits in, and what it means for the Eagles secondary potentially moving forward.
Well, I've always liked the player coming out of Duke, a fifth-round pick, and he's pretty sticky in coverage. I sort of followed his career a little bit, but he's primarily played mostly inside, and I guess the assumption is that the Eagles are going to give him a long look inside. I believe 85% of his snaps have come inside in his career, but I wouldn't necessarily say that that's the definitive plan, right? I mean, obviously, that's something that he's very accustomed to doing, but I think it more so gives the Eagles some optionality as to how they want to deploy him. Could they put him outside in a pinch? Could he add just simply some more depth? But I think when you look at what the Eagles had prior to the addition, they didn't have any definitive answer at the nickel position. If they were to have to move Cooper DeJean, you look at Perry Nickerson, who's no longer on the 53, Mac McWilliams, Drew Makuba can play it, but he's a safety, and he's really mastering that position. So I think that his natural fit here will be inside, and I think it could be more so situational where there are times where you might want to have Cooper DeJean outside and Michael Carter the second inside, and more often than not, I think you want to keep Cooper inside because of what he can do, the open field tackling, the ability to play the run and things like that. You don't want to take away what makes him so good.
One of the things is everybody just assumes, Andrew, that, they'll move Cooper outside, and I think a lot of people think he can handle that position. What is your thoughts as Cooper DeJean as a strictly outside corner?
Yeah, I think Cooper DeJean can do anything that's asked of him. If you look up football player in the dictionary, Cooper DeJean's picture is going to be right there. But I think to put him outside would be taking away the skill set and what he can provide in totality, and moving him around and creating different matchups that you like, and you want to put him on there. But also, I go back to what he's able to provide from the nickel position, where he is in the middle of things. He's in the mix. He can make tackles. He can blitz. He can do all sorts of things. And in today's NFL, playing an inside corner position, that's a starting position in the NFL, but it also has increased it's been more increased emphasis and responsibility because you're defending players like Mike Evans. Not only is Mike Evans playing on the outside, but he plays on the inside. That's just an example, but I just think what Cooper DeJean can give the Eagles to put him strictly on the outside would be limiting what he can provide in terms of his overall skill set.
Talking with Andrew DiCecco for Football at 4 here on a happy hour Friday. No Eagles game this week, but, of course, they're getting ready for the Packers. We'll talk a little bit about what's going on with this Eagle defense. You got Michael Carter in here. So if you put a Michael Carter slot, Cooper DeJean outside, is that a better configuration than Cooper DeJean in his current role and, say, Adoree Jackson and Kaylee Ringo? Do you think that that's a significant upgrade, an upgrade, or a lateral move?
I don't know that it is a significant upgrade because, I just think Cooper DeJean inside is such a dominant presence, and he provides a lot of different optionality that the Eagles can do defensively. And to kind of expand on this, outside, and again, the sample size is small, but Kaylee Ringo has performed adequately enough over the past couple of games against the Vikings and the Giants that maybe you want to give him a longer look out there. He's a younger player, and you don't necessarily want to like you want to give him the benefit of the doubt or make sure that you're leaving no stone unturned. And also Jacorian Bennett's coming back as well. That's another reinforcement. The Eagles really don't know what he can do. He played just 24 defensive snaps. Vic Fangio even said incomplete when evaluating Jacorian Bennett. And I think Jacorian Bennett can offer starting upside. And you could do that without the expense of moving Cooper DeJean. So I don't know that that's necessarily the best configuration, putting Carter at nickel and then moving Cooper DeJean outside. But until we see what that looks like, it's kind of hard to reach that determination.
Do you see him at all possibly getting involved at the safety position? He did play some safety at college. I mean, is that a possibility, or is that kind of past, not where you're looking at with him?
Perhaps, but I don't really view him as a safety. And Drew Makuba barely comes off the field. Reed Blankenship plays pretty much every snap as well. So there's not a lot of room or options for him to get in there. And I just don't really view him at that 5'10", 185 pounds. But it does give the Eagles some flexibility in how they want to deploy their personnel potentially. But that's not really how I scouted him coming out of the draft, nor do I really view him as that right now.
All right, let's, the trade deadline's coming up. Do they need an edge rusher? You got Nolan Smith coming back. You got Brandon Graham, coming out of retirement. You got Azeez Ojulari if you want to give him more snaps. You got Josh Uche. You got Jalix Hunt. Is this a team that needs to be pounding the pavement, picking up the phone to add another edge rusher?
Well, it's not as much of a necessity now that there's reinforcements on the way, but if I had to kind of rank where the Eagles need to address certain areas, edge would still be number one for me. Then it would be reserve offensive line help, and then it would be corner. But I say edge because you have a number of different players there, and against the Giants, they were able to get home. They got home 5 times, but only one of those times was from an edge rusher. Josh Uche had the play there that got overturned. But you never want to make too much off of one game against the Giants, which have a relatively porous offensive line. You have to take into account the full body of work, and the Eagles have not been able to really get home, which has necessitated Vic Fangio having to send a lot more pressure than he ordinarily has in his career out of necessity because you're not able to get home with traditional pressure. And I also think adding another player to the mix there, maybe one that has more experience and that slots into maybe that late 20-year-old range where he's played a lot. It adds experience for one, but it also allows the other players that you've mentioned to slide into those roles that they're more ideally suited and don't necessarily have to take on such a large workload. Like a Jalix Hunt, you can reduce some of his snaps. Nolan Smith, when he comes back, the way that he plays the game, it really lends itself to being injured. Maybe you don't need to afford him the lion's share of the snaps, and everyone else can kind of step in and play those situational roles, and it just keeps everyone fresh. And that's just kind of the way that I'm viewing that right now.
So when you hear these possible, 3 first-round picks for a guy like Myles Garrett, I know we all kind of chuckle. Charles Robinson's not some, blogger out there throwing these out there. Do you kind of say that's interesting? Do you don't take it serious? How do you make? What do you make of that whole situation that kind of, took over yesterday a little bit?
Well, Howie Roseman's going to always explore every avenue, especially if a player is available. And 3 first-round picks sounds about right for someone like Myles Garrett. But I just don't know if the Eagles will be willing to, acquiesce to that kind of asking price, despite the fact that Myles Garrett's probably the best defensive player in the NFL. You put him on that defense, and you'd be hard-pressed to find a team that's going to be able to contend with that. I just think that might be a little rich considering where the Eagles are right now, but you can never rule out. I always say never with Howie Roseman, that the trenches and pass rush help is something that they've always traditionally been willing to an exception for. But I just don't know if everything's going to align in the sense that it would make him a feasible option for the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right, real quick, before we move on to some other things on this thing, would Asante Samuel Jr. interest you at all?
No, he would not. And again, when I look at this, Mike, it's a name, it's a household name, but it's not a definitive upgrade over what the Eagles already have in Adoree Jackson, Jacorian Bennett, and Kelee Ringo. So if you're going to bring somebody in, and cornerbacks being, it's all of a sudden a little bit crowded there. I think you have to always bring in someone that you know, or you have a strong sense that's going to add a significant upgrade. And I don't know that he can do that. He has the injury, the neck injury that he's now overcome. But even when he was playing his best with the Chargers, I still don't know. I mean, you don't even know what you have in Jacorian Bennett. So I think you owe it to the player. You owe it to, you brought him in here for a reason. Maybe give him a longer look before you bring in someone else from the outside, and all of a sudden they have to learn the defense, and it takes them a while to even get implemented into it.
What is your view of how this Dean Campbell thing is going to kind of shake out post-bye?
Yeah, I think it's going to be situational. If you see a team that's run-heavy, you're likely going to want Nakobe Dean on the field. He's so effective playing the run and attacking the line of scrimmage and bringing that physical presence that I think that they've lacked at times this year. But you also, it's a double-edged sword because you don't want to take Jahad Campbell off the field, who's made notable strides every week at off-ball linebacker, and he's more athletic, and he can do some things in space that Nakobe can't do. He has the length, and he can take running backs up the sideline and cover them. He can match up against tight ends, and that's not really Nakobe's wheelhouse. He can do it, but his skill set is something that Jahad Campbell isn't necessarily as proficient in, and that's attacking the run and just seeing things at a split second and making those decisions. And that comes with experience, but Nakobe is so highly intelligent that he really is the quarterback of the defense when he's out there. So I imagine that you're going to see them try to strike that balance, but you have to make sure that if you're the Eagles, it's not at the expense of the growth and development of John Campbell. But Nakobe's still going to be in the mix and played 33 snaps the other day. Vic Fangio is a big Nakobe Dean guy. And when he's out on the field, no one can dispute the fact that they're playing with a little bit more swagger and they have some juice. So I still think that they have to find a way to balance that. Like against Green Bay, they'll spread you out. I think that's going to be a big Jahad Campbell game. But until we see what the thought process is from Vic Fangio and we get a little bit further down the road here, it's kind of hard to decipher it.
All right, a few more with Andrew DiCecco. Today's football at 4. Eagles at the bye. They do have a trade deadline on Tuesday. We'll see if Howie Roseman gets something done by the time Andrew's back here next week on football at 4. The offense ran the ball. They had their best day by far. You had 200-yard rushers. It's obviously not just the running backs. Is the offensive line coming around? Is it getting healthier? And I know you wrote an article over at InsideTheBirds.com about Brett Toth. He was much maligned for his performances before. Probably had his best game of his career the other day. Adam almost described it as like an outer-body experience about how good he kind of played in that game. But is the offensive line now settling into this offense?
Yeah, I mean, I think you see the difference of when you have a healthy center who's able to climb to the second level and not be limited by injuries. Cam Jurgens is clearly playing through the recovery process of that off-season back surgery, and it's going to take him some time before he's going to look like himself. I don't know that it's as simple as saying that putting a healthy center in there is all of a sudden springboarded that rushing attack, but I really do believe that when Jordan Mailata said that they were just a hair off, he's been saying that for a number of weeks now, that they were able to kind of hone in on certain aspects of the run game and the blocking schemes. I did a lot more outside runs this time to free things up. And Landon Dickerson looked a lot healthier than he has all season, and that was a big key because I thought that he had his best game of the season by far. So there's a number of different things that I think contributed to it. And I'm curious to see whether the Eagles are a little bit more gradual in how they're approaching the knee injury now to Cam Jurgens, and maybe they're more willing to go to Brett Toth again for another week if that means that Cam Jurgens will be closer to being at full strength, and then for that stretch run, you have a relatively healthy offensive line.
All right, we'll leave on this. Obviously, A.J. Brown's name comes up a lot. You're around him in the locker room. A lot of people just feel like his social media persona is like, he doesn't want to be here. But you don't ever get the feeling inside that locker room that he is like a malcontent or doesn't want to be here. I mean, am I reading this right? I feel like everybody wants to read this guy's social media and then make an assessment on him. To me, this stuff is just because people are bored and don't have much to talk about during the bye week, that the Eagles have almost zero interest in trading him unless they were absolutely knocked off their rocker.
Your assessment's correct, Mike. I've never been of the mindset that he was unhappy about being a Philadelphia Eagle, that he was, as the word that you use, malcontent. That's not the case at all. I think a lot, probably too much, is made in trying to decipher his social media posts. Is he frustrated? Of course. AJ is, and there's a great article by my buddy Brooks Cabino on The Athletic that really speaks into, it really pulls the curtain back into the mindset and behind the scenes about what makes AJ Brown tick. He's a competitor first and foremost. He loves the thrill of the game that he gets when he's able to dominate an opposing cornerback, and he likes being heavily involved, and a big reason why the Eagles are winning football games. And so when he's not, that, I guess that's something that he takes exception to, or maybe that's a little strong, but maybe something that he isn't necessarily keen on. And you see some of those posts or whatever it is. I don't try to decode it or anything like that, but he's a very good teammate. Every time I see him, he's very much, there's the camaraderie there amongst his teammates, and he's very well liked, and there's a reason why he's a captain. Now, do I agree with the way that he handles everything? Absolutely not. You never want to be a quote-unquote distraction in that sense, especially off some wins, but he is a competitor at the highest degree, and I think a lot of what makes him great, I would argue, is his willingness, or his the way that he performs and trains for those moments. He wants the ball in critical moments. He wants that pressure, and he's different. I think he's the most misunderstood athlete in the city. You can put him right next to Joel Embiid, and I think that he is an asset, and I don't view him going anywhere.
All right, well, I certainly hope not, because they want to win a Super Bowl. A.J. Brown's pretty darn important, but that trade deadline on Tuesday at 4 o'clock. Andrew DiCecco has plenty more. Check out his coverage over at InsideTheBirds.com, the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can get on all podcasting platforms. Just search Inside the Birds. Andrew, enjoy the bye week, man.
I appreciate it, Mike. You as well.